The PlayStation 4 has been outselling its competition ever since it hit the market in 2013. To help all those gamers figure out what to play, GamePoiint brings you the top 10 PlayStation 4 exclusive games released so far. If you like horror movies, then you'll definitely want to check out Until Dawn, a game that puts you in the shoes of 8 potential murder victims. Like many scary flicks, the game follows a group of teenagers who decide to spend the night in a cabin in the woods, a locale that just happens to be in the path of a serial killer. You get to play as each of the characters in turn, making decisions about where they hide and how they react when the killer comes creeping. Your choices determine who lives and dies, so if you're always yelling at horror movie characters for making dumb decisions, you'll be pleased that you get to craft the narrative here. Perhaps you've heard of a modest little series called God of War? Typically, Sony keeps these bombastic action games on the bleeding edge of technology, with boundary-pushing graphics and set pieces so epic they could make Zeus himself crack a smile. Seriously, these games are about as subtle as an earthquake. Instead of diving right into the inevitable God of War 4, Sony bought itself some time by re-releasing the third game in the series, which originally launched on PS3 in 2010. The remaster looks and plays great, so if you missed the bone-crushing action the first time around, this is a great chance to check it out. What do you have left when you peel nearly everything off the bones of a side-scrolling platformer? You have something like N++, the third installment in a series of hyper-challenging, impossible-to-put-down games. The graphics may be minimal, but the gameplay is more than functional. You play as a graceful, nimble ninja who has to make it from point A to point B without being killed by the enemies, obstacles, and devious traps in between. If you can collect all the coins in each level, so much the better. This sequel has a multiplayer mode as well as a level editor to keep you coming back long after you've beaten the thousands of stages that ship with the game. If intense, fast-paced spaceship shooters are more your thing, Resogun has your name on it. This gorgeous PS4 exclusive tests your reflexes by sending horde after horde of enemy aircraft onto the screen and trusting that you have the thumb skills to blast them all away. Instead of taking place on a flat 2D surface, however, each level takes place on the side of a cylinder. That means that enemies you miss on the left can swoop around and attack you from the right. It also means you have more maneuverability, because you can fly your ship all the way around the level to deal with the enemies. With plenty of weapons at your disposal and a never-ending focus on achieving a high score, Resogun is a game that's easy to keep playing well past bedtime. Nathan Drake is a modern-day Indiana Jones who travels the world seeking adventure and priceless artifacts. He may get in more car chases and shootouts than your average explorer, but when fortunes are on the line, bad guys tend to get a little competitive. In this collection, the whole PlayStation 3 trilogy has been updated and remastered to look great on the PlayStation 4. There's tons of incredible gameplay, massive set pieces, and a heck of a story here, so if you missed out on it the first time around, there's never been a better time to get caught up. Ratchet Clank, a long-running series of PlayStation action platformers, is a big deal again. For one thing, it's being turned into an animated feature film, which will spread its popularity beyond just gamers. But gamers don't need to worry, because they get a killer game based on the movie. This title is technically a remake of the 2002 Ratchet Clank game, but it's much more than that. It's being made in conjunction with the movie, so some story points may be tweaked to line up with the Hollywood version of things, and the graphics have gotten a mega boost. But the basic idea of a furry Lombax and his robot pal adventuring around the universe remain just as good as it's always been. Developer Jonathan Blow helped kick off the modern indie gaming scene with Braid, a side-scrolling platformer that was stuffed to the brim with mind-bending puzzles. Apparently Blow funneled nearly all of his profits from Braid into The Witness, a puzzle-adventure game that was first announced in 2009, and expanded in scope and ambition until its 2016 release. The game contains a vast selection of brain-twisting puzzles, including some that are nearly impossible to solve. You might want to keep a walkthrough guide handy, but don't miss out on this one. Bloodborne will break you down. But if you remain steadfast and keep giving it your all, it will rebuild you into much better shape than when you started. This bleak title is set in a Victorian steampunk city whose streets are teeming with some of the most frightful creatures ever created. You explore the world and exterminate every enemy you find, including towering bosses that are all but guaranteed to give you nightmares. Success is hard won, but it's all the sweeter for it. If you like a finely crafted game that pulls no punches, Bloodborne will give you dozens of hours of enjoyment. Not only is Uncharted 4, A Thief's End a top-tier game, but it also caps off one of the best video game franchises of the past decade. For those unfamiliar with the series, Uncharted stars Nathan Drake, explorer and treasure hunter extraordinaire. Drake lives a life that would make even Indiana Jones jealous, doing things like climbing steep cliffs, getting in epic shootouts and blowing up every vehicle he finds. This game kicks off after he's settled down with his wife and promised to lead a normal life. But when his brother shows up, all that's about to change. It's yet another killer release from Naughty Dog, one of the best developers on the planet. The Last of Us was a PlayStation 3 game, but this remastered version is exclusive to the PlayStation 4. The game takes place after a fungal outbreak has destroyed the world, but the focus is really on the relationship between two protagonists as they make their way across a post-apocalyptic United States. Thanks to the extra horsepower of the PlayStation 4, the game now runs in full 1080p resolution, and at 60 frames per second. This edition also comes with all of the DLC released for the original game, plus a commentary track you can listen to as you play through the campaign. The Last of Us Remastered is the definitive version of one of the best games ever made, which puts it at first place on the list.